what I'm going through, and you see the future too. I just need to trust you, trust you. There is nothing in my life that has caught you by surprise. Help me, Lord, to trust you, trust you. When I've got nothing left to say, teach me, Lord, to pray. 'Cause Lord, I know that your love is better than, your love is better than, your love is better than anything. Your love is better than, your love is better than, your love is better than anything of mine. You see the mountain in my life, you also see the other side. I just need to trust you, trust you. You lead me through the darkest night, your word is a guiding light. Help me, Lord, to trust you, trust you. When my heart begins to stray, Lord, show me the way. 'Cause God, I know your love is better than, your love is better than, your love is better than anything. Your love is better than, your love is better than, your love is better than anything of mine. I know that you are faithful, I know that you are strong, I know that you are here to show me that when I feel unworthy and when I feel alone, your hands will be there to guide me. With all of hell against me, I will keep pressing on. I feel your fire burn inside me. My God, you have no equal. Jesus, you stand alone. Lord, your spirit is all I need. When this whole world fades away, there's one truth that remains. Your love is better than, your love is better than, your love is better than anything. Your love is better than, your love is better than, your love is better than anything of mine.
Hey everybody, this is JC, and we are so glad that you're here with us on Instagram and on Facebook, and I am excited that you're here for Community at 9 o'clock here on Facebook and on Instagram. If you're watching live tonight on Wednesday, let me welcome you. Or if you're a replay watcher on Sunday at 9 o'clock, I'm just glad that you're here at this community at 9 o'clock. And it's just exciting to have you here. That was my buddy Daniel Troutman. And you can see all of his music by going to worshipwithdt.com. That's worshipwithdt.com. I've also tagged him on the Facebook feed. You can see him there. And book him to do whatever, anything worship. Daniel was actually one of my first worship leaders at Church of Catoosa and 180 Student Ministries, The Beautiful Rescue. That was the name of the band. And Daniel led worship with us there. And I just loved having him there. Going to be with him this coming Wednesday. 1 week from tonight, going to be up on Mont Eagle at New Beginnings Church doing a big back-to-school bash with Daniel Troutman. So excited about that. Heading this weekend to just north of Jacksonville, Florida with Drew Upton. And we're doing a back-to-school bash there at First Baptist Church, Ballard or Millard. I can't remember the exact name of it, but we're heading up there, so y'all pray for us as we're going to be on the road driving, and it's going to be good. Man, we are just recovering tonight. Had an incredible first Wednesday here at Rockbridge Community Church, and just worshiped, and I sang so loud I kind of hurt my voice a little bit. I was singing so loud, and just it's been an incredible night. I'm excited about the word tonight. And so to kick things off, I just want to ask you this question. It's a question that everybody is really into. How many of you love terms and conditions? I see the hands. Okay. Actually, if you're like me, you've probably never read the terms and conditions. You probably just skim right over them. You know, when you download an app on your phone or your computer, it pops up and says, click accept, read the terms and conditions, or click accept. Majority of the time what we do is we click agree and we move on. Am I alone in that? No, that's pretty much what we do. Because terms and conditions, they can be pretty crazy long. In fact, Instagram, you guys on Instagram, all of us that have an account on Instagram, the terms and conditions for Instagram is about 5,000 words long. I guarantee you there's not too many of us right now that read the terms and conditions. We just clicked agree and said, I want to post my pictures, right? Because we don't read it. Well, there's a lawyer that actually read every word of the terms and conditions for Instagram, and he wrote some of them down. Here's a few highlights. You ready for this? Other people might pay us to use their picture, but you will probably never get paid. We may randomly delete your post. How does that make you feel? Instagram. How about this one? We can force you to give up your username for any reason at any time. And finally, we can share your personal information with other companies. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? How about this one for all of you Snapchat users? Your pictures don't delete forever. They store them and can be pulled up at any time by the powers that be. Some of you just deleted your Snapchat. Busted. Just call me accountability. If you just got really worried and you're checking the terms and conditions on Snapchat right now, you probably should delete it because you're not strong enough to have Snapchat. How about that? All right? Just chalk it up to tonight's devotion was for you to delete your Snapchat. All right, so here's what it is. Sounds like, in all honesty, there's terms and there's conditions, but they're subject to change. Did you know that? In fact, the kicker is that all of them are not set in stone. Here's the rules. Here's what we want you to abide by. Oh yeah, by the way, we can change those rules at any time. Yeah, the terms and the conditions that we set, they're subject to change at any time. It's kind of weird because Instagram made the rules and they have the right to break the rules. It's not cool, Instagram. It's not cool. But I got to thinking about that this week. The terms and the conditions, and it's kind of like life. Because if we're honest, life has some terms and conditions. Life comes with some ups and downs, and in all honesty, life is subject to change. Some of you are going through some big change right now. Some of you, there's some stuff that's getting ready to happen in life, and you are going through that change right now. You thought it was one way, but it switched. And now it's this way. Life is subject to change, which is obvious when you think about it. We all have these terms and conditions or these expectations for what it should look like, and then one day, completely out of the blue, it totally rearranges itself. And change can be awesome, or it can definitely be awful. I think we struggle with change. If I can just be real for a minute, we struggle with change for a few reasons. One, change forces us into the unknown. It forces us into the unknown. We don't arrive at change with a guaranteed set of rules or what it's going to look like at the end. And so we don't know how things turn out. That can be pretty stressful for us. My boy, Butters, Colton, he freaks out a little bit at times. We got some kids that are really smart and others think the toaster's haunted. And Butters he gets scared real easy. I think back to last summer, he was up on top of a little 6-foot ladder at a swimming pool, and he was stuck in fear because he didn't know what was at the bottom. He didn't know how deep he would go under the water. And he just sat there, and I'm like, come on, man, I'm right here at the bottom of the water. And then once he did it, he overcame that fear. He did it over and over and over and over again. But the change, because he had never done it before, it forced him into the unknown. Another thing about change is that we lose perspective. Let's be honest, change can be very emotional. In fact, if it's big enough change, it can make you feel like your world's coming to an end, can it? Another thing about change is it causes us to realize we're not in control. Let's be real, a lot of us spend a lot of time and energy trying to control our outcomes. We study to make good grades. We practice our sport or our instrument or our trade. We take the right elective so we'll get into the right college. We do everything we can to avoid an argument with family and friends, but it happens. It's out of our control. Change just comes in like a wrecking ball, not to reference Homegirl. So, although we never really have control of our lives, we feel it the most and deeply when we are in the middle of it. It's kind of like we get put in this big blender of time. Everything's just shoved in there, and it's turned on high, and the top's not put on, and stuff's just flying around. That's what life kind of feels like when you're going through change. The real question that I want to ask tonight is, how can we make it through the change? How do we get through it? What does that look like for us? Fortunately for us, the Bible has some things to say about that question. And it says that we can be comforted and actually carried through anything that life throws at us. So before we get in there, I want to give you a little backstory, a little context, a little foundation for where we're going and how we're going to build this. So thousands of years ago, there's this group called the Israelites that God chose to be his people. And although God's perfect, the Jewish people, they obviously couldn't behave perfectly. And so, despite that, God still wanted them to live differently than any other group of people in the world. So he gave them a set of laws on how to live a great life while setting themselves apart. It began with 10, and then eventually it became around 613 laws that these people had. They had laws for just about everything. They had laws for what to eat and what not to eat, what to wear and what not to wear. Some of the rules applied to worship. Not everybody could go and worship. Only a select few could go to the temple and worship. It was the smaller elite group that could experience God's presence. So the rules for worship were rigged, to say the least. Fast forward a few centuries, and when something revolutionary happened, God entered the world in real flesh, in real blood, it as a person, in Jesus. God in the flesh, 100% God, 100% man, stepped into the world and shared this amazing truth that his love wasn't just for Jewish people, but his love was for the whole world. And then after being put to death and demonstrating just how great his love was, Jesus came back from life. He defeated death. And that was a game-changing, history-making moment because the resurrection changes everything. The power of the resurrection is the backbone of our faith. It changes everything. But then Jesus, he left the world. We talked about that last week when they saw with their own eyes vindication. I saw him ascend into heaven. We talked about that last week. And once life returned to somewhat normal, if you will, the Jewish people who had become followers of Jesus, they were shaken up a little bit. Their religion, which they had faithfully practiced every day, went from 613 rules or laws to one. a relationship. One relationship. Did God's law have terms and conditions? I wonder, were these rules subject to change? To say that these people had concerns would be an understatement. And so there's a letter that is written and was addressed to these folks. It's called Hebrews. We get the book of Hebrews from it. Not Christian coffee, Hebrews. Stupid. It was written to the Jewish people who followed Jesus. And the author was clearly and deeply understanding of God's plans and his people and his purpose for mankind. And so as the letter is ending, the author is writing his final thoughts, and he makes this statement. It's found in Hebrews 13 and verse 5. It says, "Don't love money. Be satisfied with what you have, for God has said, I will never fail you. I will never abandon you." That's powerful. Don't love money. Be satisfied with what you have. That's a kick in the pants. For God has said, I will never fail you. Never. I will never abandon you. Now that may seem like a weird thing for us to hear, that don't love money, be satisfied with what you have. But it made sense to them at the time, because being a Jewish Jesus follower wasn't easy. One of the changes that came with following Jesus meant that you were in danger of losing your property, of losing your wealth, of losing everything. But even with this scary threat of potential change like this, the author reminds these believers something that they already knew, but that he wanted to prove in their lives, that God would never abandon them, that God would never fail them. He would never let them down. Basically what the writer is saying, hey, a lot is changing, I get that, but God's character, it hasn't changed at all. You can still trust him. The writer continues a few verses later. He makes a similar statement that I think can help all of us with what we're facing, a life that is subject to change. He says this in Hebrews 13 and verse 8, and this is our core verse for tonight. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. In other words, even though Jesus changed the game, he himself has not changed one bit. He was the representation of the same God they had been following since they first encountered him. Sure, the way that they live and they worship, that changes in a major way. Instead of following hundreds of rules, they were now free to simply follow one person, Jesus. So that meant worship. There's no more rules about who could go into the temple. It's not that elite group. Anybody is free to worship, expressing God, experiencing God. His Spirit is now available to anyone and everyone. And sacrifices, in one move, Jesus became the singular permanent sacrifice for everyone's sins. No more animals had to die like they did in the old system. And to us, these changes seem awesome. We worship them. We praise God for these changes. But to the Jewish people at that time, they were unsettling. Because change is never easy. Remember, in the middle of your change, you have no clue how things are going to turn out. Some of you right now are like my boy Butters. You're stuck at the top of a ladder. You're freaking out a little bit because you don't know how this is going to turn out. That's what the Jewish people felt like. That's why the writer of Hebrews reminds the Jewish people, and he reminds you tonight, thousands of years later, he is the same yesterday, today, forevermore. Your circumstance may look pretty bad. The situation you're going through may feel like it's about to take you under. God hasn't changed. He's the same. He's the same for them thousands of years ago as he is right now. Their circumstances changed, but God's character had never changed. And the lesson learned is something huge, something that applies to us today. It's simply this: life changes, God doesn't. Life changes, God doesn't. Just think about how freeing that is. While everyone around you and everything around you is subject to change, it kind of makes us feel out of control. You can walk with the one who is actually in control every day of your life, because Jesus is a friend who never changes. He was good thousands of years ago, and he's still good today. Hey, friends, I remind you again, your circumstance might change, but his character never will. The best way that we can remember this truth to keep it in front of us, here's what I mean. You got to focus on it. You got to put your eyes on it. So I did this thing a couple years ago called Dancing Stars of North Georgia. I didn't win. It was terrible. I don't dance well. But I learned, and my sister-in-law's a dance coach. She owns Max Dance Company on Max Smith Road, little plug. When you're doing your little twisty, twirly things, what is that called? You know, I got a live audience tonight. Ryan's in here with me. What's that called when they do they spin around real quick? I don't know what it's called. But when they're spinning, they're caught to keep their eyes on one thing in front of them as they spin so they don't get dizzy, they don't lose focus. When change is happening, life feels like it's spinning around. We got to keep our eyes focused on Jesus, because if not, we're going to get all kinds of messed up, because when we shift our focus to our problems, things feel worse. We tend to forget how God has shown up in the past, and the result is that we lose perspective and focus on stuff instead of the person. It's important that we stay focused on the one who can stabilize us and can keep us balanced. Now, here's what I'm going to do in this moment right now. I got a video that I want you to watch, and it's only on Facebook. So Instagram, I'm going to pause, and we're going to come back to you. But Facebook, I want you to hear a story of a young man who had to live this truth out. Life was going in one direction, and in a moment, it all changed. And I want you to hear how God has used this young man's story. His name's Austin Whitten. He's a good friend of mine, and I want you to hear his story. Check this out.
Come June 9th, 2012, just a belly flop into a pool changed my life. I broke my C6, C7 vertebrae in my neck. I was with a bunch of friends at a church outing, so I jumped, and it's just like you stopped in midair. Hit the water, belly flop, the water, pressure of the water, crushed my C6 and C7 vertebrae in my neck, which left me paralyzed from the chest down. I didn't plan for that to happen. But you know, our plans ain't the same as God's plans. God's plans are actually a whole lot bigger and a lot better for us. My favorite scripture that's stuck with me through my accident and ever since before is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Not only just, the little obstacles, but, the big obstacles. Without God's mercy and God's power, I couldn't do this. Once my accident happened, I had several months of rehabilitation. But things change when you're paralyzed. Simple things as brushing your teeth, rolling over in bed, putting clothes on, your everyday things that you never thought of would be really super hard for you. Doctors gave me a 1% chance of walking. Doctors also said that I would be in an automatic chair the rest of my life, that I would never have full mobility, full movement of my arms. And that's when God stepped in, because I have 100% mobility in my arms. Doctors don't know how God works, but I do. And God works in me anyway. People see me in this chair, and they feel sorry. He's in a chair. I don't see that this is a chair. I see that this is a platform for God, for what He's brought me through, and what He's going to take me to. This chair is probably one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. If this chair just reaches out to just a couple of people, that's all that matters. As long as it's through God.
It's powerful stuff. I love Austin's story. I ran into Austin a few years ago and just heard him share his story, and just to see his heart and how he has taken something that was life-changing and giving God glory through that, to be an athlete. And God changed some stuff in his life, physically put him doing something completely different than what his plan or his dream had been. If you hang around Austin too long, if you hang around him, you can hang around that boy too long. But if you're around Austin for any length of time, you know that he is going to give God praise for putting him in that wheelchair. And Austin, I love you, man. I'm so proud of you. You're a good kid. And God's got big plans for you, even beyond what he's already done in your life. You're touching a lot of people that you'll never know this side of eternity, man. I'm proud of you, buddy. Hey, friends, I want you to think back. I bet you can remember a specific time when God has come through for you, when God proved himself real. In the middle of change, like Austin said, life doesn't turn out the way that you think it is going to, but God proved himself in the middle of that. Think about the times when God has come through, when you didn't know how that bill was going to get paid. Money shows up. You don't know how you're going to feed your kids. The food is there. Maybe he's helped calm your anxiety from time to time. Maybe he's answered a really important prayer request. Maybe he was there when a relationship ended and he helped you survive. Take some time. Think through your past. Come up with a few specific memories of how God stayed the same when life didn't, when he showed up. I want to challenge you. Write those down. Keep a journal. Remind yourselves often of the times that God showed up. It goes back to what we talked about last week. Remember. That's what we're talking about. Remember how faithful God is. Remember the times that he was there for you in the good and in the bad. Listen, change is going to happen. Sometimes it will be good, sometimes it won't. But even through life's unpredictability, we can always trust one who is very predictable. He is always, always, always at work. And I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times, I've said it on these lives a bunch. He is always at work. Behind the scenes, doing things you are completely unaware of, but one day you'll benefit from. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you guys. A lot of you probably know, but man, 17, almost 18 years ago, I was engaged to be married. I thought I had my life planned out. I had everything that I had planned in my brain ready to go. And 10, 15 days before the wedding, called it off. It was a big no. It was like God just said, nope, not going to happen. And I thought it was devastating. I hit a low point in life. But what I've learned is when God says no, there's a greater yes in store. Fast forward a few years and I met Kim. And here we are, almost getting ready to celebrate in October. We're going to be celebrating 11 years, 6 kids, moved to one end of the country and back. Man, that is my greater yes. It came at a moment of change, but I didn't understand what God was doing. Hey, God, you're messing up my plans. God, this is the way that it's supposed to go. Hold up. I'm at work, behind the scenes, doing something you have no idea. But I've got your best interest in mind, and you're going to benefit from this. I'm so thankful that God is always in control. Friends, you got to remember, life changes. God doesn't. He is the same loving, faithful God that he has always been, even though your situation right now may look completely different than what you thought it was going to. I want to challenge you. Think of some areas in your life where you can begin to learn on that reality, that life changes, but God stays the same. Because you can't avoid change. It's going to happen, but you can make it through the change. Because even through life change, Jesus stays the same. Here's the deal. I want to pray through you. What? I want to pray for you as you go through that situation. No matter what it is, big or little, I can promise you that I will pray for you and with you. That's what I do. That's my job as a pastor. That's my calling in life, is to walk through journeys of change with people. And I could sit here and tell you stories for days on end of people that I'm walking through stuff with right now. That's why we're here. And if you got something that's going on that you just need somebody to pray with you, some help, some wisdom. If I can't find it, I'll find somebody a lot more knowledgeable than I will, and we'll help you find the answers to those questions. I'm here for you, and I want you to remember, life changes. Life sucks sometimes. Let's be straight up. But God stays the same, and He promises to be with you. And don't forget, He's the same yesterday as He is today, and He will be tomorrow. He sees the whole parade. We can only see what's happening right in front of us. He sees the beginning and the end. Trust His process. Know that He's in control. What He's doing in you right now may be more important. It is more important than what's going on around you. Instead of cursing the change, instead of protesting, just learn to praise. Just thank Him for putting you in the middle of that, and see how you could come out on the other side a different person. Let me pray for you, and then we're going to be done tonight. Thanks for joining me at Community at 9. Let's pray. Jesus, I love you so much. And Father, I pray tonight for my friends that you will help them as they navigate through change. Change is not easy. Change sucks so bad sometimes. Change can feel like it's taking the very life out of us. But God, I pray as we sang tonight that we will build our life on you. And that when that change comes, we have a foundation that is solid and secure and never changes, never fails, never falters. And that gives us hope to carry on. So God, I pray for my friend that's watching on Facebook and on Instagram right now, that you will help them. Help them realize that A, they are not alone. To the one that's watching live right now or watching the replay, help them realize that they're not alone, that there are people that are here for them and want to help them, and they're not the first to go through the situation they're in. I pray that they will ask for help. God, for the one that's going through change, that they just feel like throwing in the towel and quitting, God, I pray that they realize how important it is for them to understand that you are in control in the good and in the bad. And you are perfect in all of your ways. God, I pray that nobody will make a permanent decision to a temporary problem. Satan wants us to do that. He wants us to feel so hopeless in the midst of that change. God, I pray for life. I pray for healing. I pray for restoration right now for my friends, that you help them see that you are in control and feel that and know that you are with them. God, I pray that you will bring us back to this Community at 9 next week, and give us just an incredible week as we make our list and realize how faithful, how good, how great you are. I love you, Jesus. In your name I pray. Amen. I love you, friends. Have a good week.